Okay, I think best Thanksgiving ever so far deserves a little sparkle. So, if you have been following along this week, I talked yesterday about my worst Thanksgiving. And the day before that, I talked about what I would consider like second worst because it was leading up to the peak of when I was really struggling in my eating disorder. And so I wanted to end on a positive, and tell you about what I consider my best Thanksgiving so far, which happened shortly after that. So to recap, about 18 years ago, I was in the beginning stages of my eating disorder time period, which really was only a couple of years. The next year was like the peak of it. And so that was about 17 years ago. And I got to do the math. So then the next one was when I was in my delayed graduation from college, which was a wonderful blessing. The one after that was when I was madly in love with my now husband. And it's actually kind of a tie about which was my best Thanksgiving. So that requires a little bit of explanation. So I hit this peak in the really bad year where I was like, oh my gosh, I really, really need help. And had this spiritual awakening, basically ended up committing my energy to recovery at that point. I'd been like kind of doing it before, but not really, because I didn't know how bad it was until then. And then I took this extra time period to wrap up my senior project and actually stay in the area where my college was. And I took a semester where I wasn't in school and I was just... And that little time period was really important for me because I think part of what I was struggling with is I had no idea what I was going to do next. And the anxiety of not knowing was showing up in a mental health crisis. And so having that little buffer time was really helpful. And I ended up getting this strong intuition to just go back home at the end of that semester. And some of it was related to my grandfather being in the hospital at the time, and some of it was just this connection that I had with the dance community at home. And I just felt like, okay, I don't have to do grad school immediately. I don't have to join a commune or any of the other weird things that I was at the time thinking of doing. And I just went home. This is important for a couple of reasons. One, I couldn't have listened to my intuition without recovery. That was one of the things that my eating disorder was cutting me off from, because I was trying to suppress natural urges like, to eat, which dieting does also. And so I had lost my intuition during that time period, and one of the gifts of recovery was getting it back. The second thing is that by not jumping into the next step, whatever it was, I actually was stopping the pull of yang energy, like overdeveloped masculine, which was deeply connected to my disordered eating at the time. Because my disordered eating was all about achieving things and control and rigidity and forcing myself to do things after feeling like I was lazy Z and like all this judgmental crap. So to stop that hamster wheel of trying to always go, go, go and do, and I actually gave myself a moment to ask what the hell I was doing and consider something and rest before continuing down a linear path. And I want to shout out Dr. Anita Johnston and her book, Eating in the Light of the Moon, for this, because that book was really the main thing that helped me feel interested in my own feminine nature, because I had judged that previously because it's not what capitalism and the patriarchy tell us to do. And what happened when I went back home, which is also so feminine, to go back into the home, is I found a dance community that I fell in love with. I found the perfect job for me at that time, where I got to continue the work that I'd been doing in college, but really make a difference in my community. And I fell head over heels in love with the guy that I'm now married to. Had I continued down the path of forcing myself to go against what my soul was screaming for me to do, I really think that I would have had a much longer, much more painful journey with my eating disorder. And I had a lot of privilege that allowed me to be able to take the break that I did and slow down. And I want to recognize that not everybody gets that, and that is a problem. And I want to uplift how beneficial the pause can be. And I'll tie this back to Thanksgiving in a second. Fittingly, my husband's cracking me up right now. So I went home, and the first Thanksgiving, I was head over heels, and I was still, though, very anxious because I was new in my recovery and worried about everything. But it was like blissfully wonderful holiday. And that year, we actually had a long distance relationship, so it was a little less grounded. But the following year, I was more rooted in my recovery. I knew myself a lot better. And that's when we got engaged. So I went from really in just a few years, Thanksgiving being this like rock bottom, to being symbolic of this entirely new life that I attribute to recovery. Like I've been saying this week, you don't have to hit a rock bottom to start learning from people who have started their recovery in their relationship to food and their bodies. You can start that before getting to where I was. And that's what I want to help people with in this program designed to support people through the holidays, because I know how exhausting, triggering, and scary the holidays can be for people when they have an unhealed relationship to food and weight. Our culture has a problem with food and weight, but you don't have to. There are resources out there, and it doesn't mean you have to change your body at all to let that crap go. If you're interested in starting this journey, I invite you to sign up for Body Caring for the Holidays. We start on Saturday, and our cart closes tomorrow, Friday, at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The link is in my bio. DM me with any questions.